Okay, here we go. Welcome, Petra. Petra is, for somebody who hasn't been on before, but Petra I met recently on LinkedIn, and it's been very interesting because we share very similar values, I think, and our work is focused in a very similar area. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Petra, but you would say your role is more in the way of alignment strategy for leaders, individuals, and for businesses as a whole. But what I really liked when I spoke to Petra is this common focus on success and the real meaning of success. You know, a lot of people chase external success, external metrics, lifestyle, revenue, influence, etc., and don't always see fulfillment at the end of that particular journey. And so we're going to talk about what it means, the real meaning of success, and we're going to talk about how we can grow, yes, how we can move towards our goals, but how we can do it in a sustainable way that actually honors who we are and doesn't leave us burning out along the way. So first of all, welcome, Petra. Great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you very much, Mark, for having me. And yes, I am excited about the topic because we're all building success in one way or the other. And I am excited that a lot of people right now are beginning to question how we build success and the ways that actually we learn about building success. So yeah, I'm here for the ride. Let's go.
Let's jump in. All right. Well, I know you're in Canada now, but first of all, because you haven't been on before, let's explore a little bit about your journey toward this work, because I always find it's a really interesting progression. And usually people have experienced the kind of shadow side of success or high performance along the way in order to get to a point where they can help and serve others who are dealing with similar issues. So wherever you'd like to start, really, a little bit about your own journey before we jump into the topic as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to call myself a dreamy girl from the slopes of Kilimanjaro. I even have a cup for it. What does it say?
Nice. Life is
Life
a
is
daring
a
adventure.
daring adventure. So yes, I grew up under the slopes of Kilimanjaro on a small banana and coffee farm. And that is where I learned about the importance of human connection, um, and how we were building success on that farm. It was very collaborative, very relational. And as much as I did not think that we were successful or rich on that farm, now that I'm an adult, I look back and I'm like, actually, we were very rich because we had everything we needed. But we were always thinking about success, looking externally. People leaving the village, going to far off towns to come back with more sophisticated ways of living, accumulating more material stuff, maybe people coming back with more fancy dresses. And so, even as a young girl, I started to define success in ways that were not necessarily mine, if you will, because I was living in abundance in that village. And of course, years go by, I find myself at the heart of Canada's capital in Ottawa in pursuit of education. So you can see I have a little master's degree on the wall just to show the receipt. And so yeah, like I think that my journey was that of like an A student, like pursuing academic success and always embodying excellence. And I think as we continue talking, you will learn a bit more about, some of the ways that I learned and unlearned about the ways that we build success. But yeah, so far my journey was from Kilimanjaro. I was in Dar es Salaam for a bit of my studies, and then I've been here in Canada for almost 18 years now. And I have taken different, routes towards success, detouring, coming back, realigning, and all of the beautiful things along the journey.
Yes, well, it's a very inspiring journey. It just reminded me of when I went to Kenya and Tanzania. We were on our honeymoon, and we're kind of on the bus going through these little villages. And as we went through, all these kids would run up, just so happy to see us, you know. And I think if you haven't explored the world, you kind of have an impression of maybe countries like that, where you think, oh, we've got it so good here in the West, and obviously there's these other countries that are have got a more difficult life. But when you actually go there, you realize that happiness isn't really dependent on having things or a particular lifestyle. Now, you might correct me. I'm sure there are things that you appreciate now about your life in Canada, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be more fulfilled or happy because you're surrounded by comfort, you know, or a particular lifestyle or money, for example. How would you reflect on that now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's different. That's what I would say, right? Canada
Mm,
is different than Tanzania, but it doesn't mean it's better, right?
mm,
I think about living on that farm where we had everything growing organically: mangoes, papaya, bananas,
mm,
passion fruit, all the fruits and veggies and will come in every season. Some of the veggies we didn't even have to replant, like things like pumpkins. They would just be there and come
mm,
back, and so I think actually we had the abundance of
mm,
the food, nature, and we had farm animals, and we had family, beautiful extended family. And in
mm,
that village, I will be able to show up as myself without having to put on a different, version of me, because
mm.
authenticity was just the way that we lived, right? So I think there's richness and abundance in those places that right now in the world, some people may be thinking, well, they're walking bare feet, maybe they don't have as much material stuff, right?
Mm.
But I think we need to think about success and richness and wealth in a different way as well. So for me, being in Canada, it has expanded my understanding of what it is to not just be successful, but actually feel successful. So I
Yes.
feel more successful when I am connected with my people, when I am present with my family. And these are not things that are just, I have a bigger car, I have a bigger house, and the roads are clean. I appreciate those things, but I'm not saying that this is better than. I'm just saying that this is different than. And if I
Yeah.
would go back into my childhood, I would tell myself, like, I am so rich and we have
Mm,
more than enough. And we don't need any of these like Western things to feel more fulfilled. And I'll give a
mm,
quick example of why I'm saying that. Like, for example, on that farm, we had everything organic, but at one point I remember I was with my dad and we were walking down the street, and he's like, you look at those crops, they were cornfields. You see how they look bigger. It doesn't mean that they're better. It's just that the seeds that they're using, they're more than seeds. And so therefore it doesn't mean like it's better than the seeds that I am circulating, like recycling from last season to the new season. And that is the truth. Now that we know more about food and what is healthy and what is not, I think we can appreciate more the traditional ways and the natural ways. And this is um, something, a way of thinking that I also embody in the work that I do today about building sustainable success.
okay. Really interesting. Yeah, it's just reminded me of a story I heard from another teacher called Ramdas, who's a spiritual teacher. And the first time he went to a place called Varanasi in India, which is a deeply spiritual place for Hindus, and they go there when they're approaching death, basically, because it's such a sacred place to be able to transition to the next realm. And the first time he went there, he found it so distressing because the people were there, old people living on the street with nothing but a bag on their back, and extreme poverty. And he felt so sorry for the people and broken by what he saw that he had to hide under his bed when he came back from walking the street. The next time he went, he was a bit more sort of spiritually developed, and when he went to Varanasi, he realized that actually the people that were living on the street were looking at him with compassion, because for them, they had this great spiritual wealth for everything. Their whole life had led to this point where they were in Varanasi at the end of their lives and they were about to meet their maker, and they felt actually they were extremely fulfilled. And he was the one, the Westerner, who was lost in the world and wandering around and, not really knowing what he was doing or where he was going. So it's an interesting, and I always think it's ideally you want a balance of the two. Yet there's nothing wrong with the materialism of the West, and we live beautiful, abundant lives, but we don't actually feel it, in a sense that we're always looking for more, aren't we? A lot of people, it's like, I want more money, I want more followers, I want a bigger business, I want the next role, the next promotion, because it never feels like enough. And for me, that becomes from a sense of not feeling enough within ourselves, or we've almost been programmed or conditioned to feel that we are not enough. And so there's this external gap or this external sense of lack, but we're trying to find it, we're trying to seek it in the external. So I always say there's nothing wrong with chasing external success, metrics, growing your business, growing your career, etc. But if you're doing it to fill an internal hole of not enough, then you're never going to find it, which is why you have to balance the external progress with the internal healing work or the alignment work, you could say, as you do. Is that something you brought into your own work as well? In other words, how do you help someone who's very growth orientated, a high performer, to grow in a sustainable way as they chase their goals?
So I think where I would start first is the framing, right? Like we grow up to check boxes. Like you check all the right boxes as you were describing. And then you get to the point where you're literally, if I'm using the Kilimanjaro example, you find yourself, you are at the top of the mountain, but you're not really feeling fulfilled inside, right? And so for me, we start there. Like, what is the motivation for you building success? And how have you been building it? Because success is not a destination. I think the journey, the pursuit of success, is also an important element to think about. Now, how can someone build success sustainably in ways that they will feel fulfilled? And for me, actually, I use a system that I call a rock system, 3 rocks actually system, inspired by my upbringing under the slopes of Kilimanjaro, where we cook on 3 rocks. And you put the pot there. It's arranged the rocks are arranged in a triangular fashion. You put the pot on top and the fire is underneath. That's how the food is being cooked. If one of the rock tilts a little bit, the pot is also tilting, and you're cooking maybe 3/4. If 2 are moving, maybe you're cooking halfway. If 3 of them actually tip over, then there's a total collapse and you need recalibration. So this quick assessment about the 3 rocks represents yourself, your home, and your work. And when I feel like, there's misalignment within or across the 3, that is where we start. So a lot of people think about building success mainly on the professional side. And this is what gets recognized. How are you successful at work? What is your title? And in my own journey, chasing the milestones and checking all the right boxes, I got to a point where I had to rethink about the foundations of my success. So I am a working parent. So I'm actually in I call it my middle motherhood era. I am going to have a teenager soon and I'm pinching myself. So in building success, I think about leading at home, leading at work, and leading myself. And a lot of people that I talk to them about their rocks, your self rock, your home rock, and your work rock. And most of the time, it's also about how these rocks are positioned. Are you over prioritizing one over the other? Is one rock taking over your entire time, and then you're just bringing leftovers at home? And that was me. I was formerly a workaholic. I would work all hours. I will work after hours. I will work while I'm frying the pancake. I will think about work when I am at the
Mm.
sauna with my husband, you know? And I had to really take the time to think about different ways of building success to make it sustainable. So this is what I bring to the table. But in a simple way, really, if there's anything to retain there, that my system, just starting with your rocks, kind of get you going. And anytime that you feel there's misalignment, you just ask yourself a question: where are my rocks? And
Mm.
then you move from there to realign there. There's a lot more work and deeper work, but I think the rock system has been helpful for me.
Yes, love that. Yeah, we're all balancing these rocks all the time, aren't we? And the interesting thing is that, I think there's a belief that we'll find happiness in the future. Like if I just get to that next revenue target, if I just sell the business, if I just retire and live on the beach somewhere. But of course, particularly when we're talking about professional advancement, the next level brings another challenge. Not the time. More money can mean more complexity, or building your business, creates more pressure, or getting to the next role, like more responsibility. And so there's often this belief that, well, it's just over the corner. Like happiness, success is just over the next corner. And of course, you get there. There's another type of problem that you have to contend with, and the mind convinces you that maybe it's over the next hill, the next hump. And so it's always. I always talk about this. It's like success isn't in the future. Exactly what you said. Success really is the journey, and more specifically, how present you can be with what you're experiencing on the way. But yes, it is a journey of constant rebalancing, and the work of growth is never over. There's no completing it. So I really like that check-in. And I'm sure anyone listening to this can relate. There are times when one does get out of balance. Like you really start to prioritize the professional development above family. And what I hear most of the time when I connect with leaders is that it's like the career is at the top, and then underneath relationships, and then the connection to self is like doesn't even get thought about, really. I mean, your own personal well-being is nowhere. If you've got any energy left, you might think about the relationship. But the way I've kind of thought about it more in recent years is that the well-being, your own well-being, your connection to self has to be at the top, really, because everything is built on top of that. I know you talk about the three rocks being equal, but really, if there's one that's more important, it's that one. And that's the one that often gets deprioritized. What I mean by that is just being able to sit with yourself, like in silence. I mean, for a lot of high achievers, that is an impossible idea. In fact, there's that famous experiment where something like 65% of people would rather face an electric shock than be sat with themselves for 5 minutes or whatever it is in silence, which is amazing, really. But that's one of the most important practices that I teach, which is this ability to just sit with yourself, witness what's going on inside, and feel your emotions. But we aren't taught that, growing up, certainly in the West. And as a result, this is quite a new concept for a lot of people. It's very difficult to do because if we live in our heads, we're always getting pulled into action. So something always feels more important than being present, being in the present moment. It's always, no, I've got to do this and that and that and that and that. And it keeps us in constant, like a hamster on a wheel, constantly doing. And often when we're creating from that energy of overwhelm, we're doing a lot, but we're not really going anywhere. We're getting the same results over and over again. So yeah, for me, it's always that your own well-being and personal connection first, because everything gets built on top of your own energy. If you're creating from lack, you'll create more lack. If you're creating from a resource place, your results will reflect that energy. What would you say about that, Petra? Is it something that you would say, is there a hierarchy involved in terms of those stones, or are all equally important in your view?
You bring a very important and valid point into the conversation about the hierarchy or the priority level of the rocks. And this is what I have to say. We have been socialized to believe in work-life balance. But I would invite you to think about life-work alignment, because your life comes first. So when I think about the three rocks, yes, the self rock has to come first. But unfortunately, a lot of people are socialized to start with the work rock.
Mm.
And for us, like for me as a woman, as a mother, it was always about the work rock because of how I built, academic excellence and then career excellence. So that took priority no matter what. And then the second rock was family. So, taking care of
Mm.
everyone else, cooking, doing all these things at the home front. And then I came last. But
Yeah.
that actually has a real cost, because then it made me, get into this point that I call a triple burnout, where I am being pulled in all these three directions. There's high demand from myself because I'm very ambitious. I really want to do better and more. And then there's also from the work side, I want to build bigger, faster, bolder, and then, at the home front as well, there's like a lot of demands going on. So I think for me, actually, my turning point or my breakthrough came when I realized that there's nothing wrong with putting myself first, because I cannot pour from an empty cup.
Exactly.
And that takes real self awareness, a lot of unlearning, and the courage to prioritize your needs. For me, it was a lot of work. I had to unlearn a lot. I even had to print out kind of a little billboard and put it in my home office that said, "My work is not my worth. I am
Mm.
not my work. I am enough just the way I am." And I used to say those words to myself until it actually entered into my system, until I could believe it. Because it's like, it's a very, I think it's a hardcore like preconditioning that takes a lot of effort and
Mm.
understanding and sometimes help to actually realize it's there. Because the bad, well, the bad or the hard part or the sad part of it is that when you're building success and you're excelling, all the rewards kind of blind you. So you actually don't see that you're sinking. You just see that I got another award, I got another title, this and that and the other. So you get really kind of consumed into that, because you're always kind of in this, like it's kind of like a merry-go-round, and you'll never kind of come back to that. So I will say, yes, the self rock has to take like
Mm.
priority. And then another thing that you say that I reacted to and I even wrote it down was this idea of milestone driven success, which really thrive in postponing your joy, right?
Mm.
I say, like, a lot of people are like, "Oh, I will do something for me when my kids
Mm.
are older. I will do something for me when I retire, when this is done, when I finish this project." But I mean, what you can say I have learned about that is success without joy is really stress in disguise. And I have a very personal example I can share about this idea of postponing joy. So it's
Mm.
been about 11 years now that I lost my sister. She was only 36, and she was working in the medical field. She was the reliable one, the dependable one, the one who is helping everyone. And I remember a very uh, important moment that I kind of, it's mixed with a little bit of regret. So I had visited Tanzania when I had my daughter at 7 months, and my sister Dapina was busy around that time. So we had a little bit of time where we hang out, maybe I will say 2 times, but most of the times were rushed. Like, it wasn't like she had a whole day to spend with us, because she was working at the pharmacy. Sometimes she would finish at 10:30 and then she would go home, and then on the weekend she had other like side projects that she was doing, right? And I think she was embodying this definition of success, which is right now it's time to sacrifice. So it's called a sacrificial success. You sacrifice now so that you can enjoy later. But
Yes.
honestly, I will tell you, if you're listening, what if later does not come,
Doesn't go on.
right?
Yeah.
What if there's no later? What if this is it? This is your season. What
Mm.
if this moment, like for me, moment that I had with her, what if we knew it was the last one, right? What if I
Mm.
knew it was last and she knew it was last? What were we going to do? So I invite you to think about building success in a way that also integrate joy. You can be successful and joyful at the same time. And do not postpone your joy as you build success. And when I say joy, I don't mean big vacations to Bali. I mean playing something at home with your kids, or going for a walk at lunch, taking 30 minutes, or just doing things that make you smile, because that is where success lives, and that is how you truly truly thrive.
Mm. Yeah, it's a powerful story. Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that one. And I hear that quite a lot, which is the sacrificing the best years of your life for some time in the future, some retirement. But of course, number one, we all know people who haven't made it that far. My wife's brother passed away in his 30s. But also, what happens when you get to your retirement? I mean, your energy starts fading. Or you might, you're more liable to pick up illness or whatever it might be. So again, those later years, maybe you've made a load of money, but you just don't have the energy to enjoy it in the same way. So that's exactly it. It is about sustainable success. And like the way you said there, it doesn't have to mean that you're blowing money on expensive holidays or whatever else you're into. Um, you know, but this is a lot of the work I do with particularly, high performing people, is that they've lost that sense of joy or passion along the way somewhere, because when you live in your head your whole life and you're being driven by that ego, you could say, or whatever word you want to call it, that is really interested in the external metrics. It really likes to be able to show six-figure business on the buy, or seven-figure business on the buy, or this award, or this many followers, and that's what it chases, because it only exists in relation to others, right? So it's always kind of like wanting to appear above someone else, and that's part of the human experience. There's nothing wrong with that. As I said, there's nothing wrong with external achievement, but yeah, coming back to what I was talking about, I mean, for a lot of people I connect with, they don't know what it means to relax or enjoy, or what passion is anymore, because it's kind of been overridden their whole lives. And so it takes a lot of work to actually begin to connect with, okay, what would a decision be that actually feels right for me? Like reconnecting with their truth or their excitement or their passion. Passion is a word that often in entrepreneurial space in particular is kind of rejected a lot. It's like, oh, don't follow your passion. There's no worth in following your passion. You build passion as you go, which is true, but also I think it's something that we all have access to, but is very, we're almost conditioned to override. It's like, don't follow your passion. There's no worth there. You won't make any money out of that. Like, you need to follow this path because there's money here, whatever it might be, a lawyer or a doctor or entrepreneur, whatever it might be. And all the time you're kind of like, there's this passion inside, which is the voice of our true self, which is getting overridden. And I think if we do that long enough, it gets so quiet that we can't even hear it anymore. So, and the other thing you said there reminded me of what I went to the spa recently with my wife, and I was in the hot tub at one point. There's a guy on his phone, scrolling, and I thought, oh, that's a bit strange. What a waste, coming to the spa and being on your phone. Then I went in the sauna, and there was a different guy, again, checking his emails in the sauna. I don't know how hot it was in there, but the guy, it just to show that it's that inability to be with yourself, to know yourself, to actually sit with yourself, because certainly initially it's uncomfortable, right? You slow down and you stop doing, and you want to relax, and all this uncomfortable stuff comes up that you've repressed from the past, and a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, all comes to the surface. If you don't know how to be with that and sit with it, the mind takes over and it takes you back into doing, action, thinking, as a way to avoid sitting and actually feeling with that stuff. So I think you touched on it as well there, which is why support is so important, certainly in the early stages, to have someone to sit with you and support you while you feel through all this difficult stuff that you've pushed away and repressed from the past by doing. because taking action, working can be just like another addiction without awareness. I know people in my family who've spent their whole life doing that, and they can't stop. Even in their 70s, they cannot stop doing, and they're completely exhausted and worn down by it. But the idea of stopping and actually, pausing and looking at what and feeding into what wants to come up is just so difficult, and for that kind of personality type. So it does take support, and I'm not just talking about other people. I'm talking about my own experience here. I constantly. That's why I have a whole community that I've built. People that can sit with me in the evenings and support me while I feel through the stress and overwhelm as it's built up during the day. Because one other thing I wanted to say was that it's not about removing pressure from your life. Like pressure it's a byproduct of moving out your comfort zone. Like being on the path of growth, you are going to experience some overwhelm, some pressure, some stress. Otherwise, you just live life in this kind of, the place of comfort, and there's no growth there. So it's not about eliminating pressure from your life. It's about learning to be with pressure, to sit with it, to process it. So as you grow, it's not overwhelming you, and you crash and you burn out, and then you have to rebuild again. It's like, can you integrate and hold the pressure as you grow, push and grow to grow yourself? So it's a delicate balance, isn't it? And how would you respond to that, Petra, in terms of that ability to be with pressure if you are on a path of wanting to grow yourself and achieve externally as well?
I first of all, I like that you mentioned the word passion, because I consider myself a multi passionate person. So I get very passionate about doing things that make a difference in people's lives, and I get passionate about certain causes, and all my career actually I have built it around that idea of kind of following my passion, not blindly, but strategically, I would say. And I also want to respond to what you talked about in terms of like rest or sitting with yourself. I think we've been conditioned that rest has to be earned, and when you are resting, you're pulling away from the go culture. You're kind of a bit lazy, or you're failing, or you're falling behind. And so I think this is also another thing that is deeper, like it's kind of engraved in our identity as high achievers, and it takes real like courage and effort to actually get out of that pit hole, because it's pretty deep. It's not just like, and the thing too I will say is, it's not like we're lacking knowledge. Like we know already that it's not working, but there's a gap between having the knowledge and actually taking action to realign. And that is where I like to play in that gap, right, to bridge the two. And another thing that I was writing down as you were speaking was that because we have been accustomed that stress is a necessity for success, and I'm not saying that you can eliminate stress, but I'm saying like we've kind of been preconditioned to believe that you have to be continuously in a state of stress and sacrifice in order for you to thrive. But actually, I invite people to think about structured joy and scheduled joy and play. This is something that may sound really simplistic, but I think having like the way we like to schedule, because we're very calendar driven people, we like to schedule every big thing, every priority. Like I started to schedule play. So I have like one day a week that it's actually there on the calendar. Everybody knows it's play day, and we all like play games, Uno, Snakes and Ladder. Like I get back into like kind of childhood vibe, and it's fun and it makes you relax. And also like, having a structure where like within your strategy for building success, you also have joy as part of it. So what I do is that every weekend I go for a big walk, like a hike sometime, or a walk with a buddy, and we just walk. and that just allow us to be somewhere else where we don't have to just always be over, like, performing and whatnot. So I think there's something to be said about restructuring and reprioritizing joy as we build success. I don't know that I answered your actual question, but those were some thoughts that I had as you were speaking.
No, that's a great idea. Scheduling into your calendar. I mean, I'm sure most people looking at this now, if you look at your calendar for the week ahead, how much time do you have in there just to do something that isn't work related, that you just love to do? So yeah, I think a lot of people I speak to, they're like, oh yeah, I go for a walk in the middle of the day, which is great. That's a great way to regulate. But also there's a deeper type of rest that when I work with leaders on, that I help integrate into their lives. It's interesting you said there, because a lot of people, like you said, it's the reward. 2 weeks a year, I will go and sit on a beach somewhere, somewhere hot, for example, and you're counting down to it month by month, week by week. Oh yes, I'm nearly there. And then you go on holiday, and now's the time to rest and recover. But obviously, it's for a lot of certainly high achievers, it's still unable to put away work. It's still thinking about it, or doing it, or emailing, or whatever it might be. And then of course, there might be some kind of rest reset that happens, but then you come back and you've been away for 2 weeks, and there's a mountain of work and responsibilities waiting for you on the other side. So actually it's almost like, it's almost made it worse, because you come away and you come back. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I do it. We're going away in about 4 weeks. We're having a break together as a family. But I think it's important to, like you said, integrate daily practices or times in your calendar where you can constantly be resting and resetting. And yeah, walking is one thing. Playing, I do with my wife and my daughter in the evening. That's a great thing about having an 8-year-old, is that she encourages you to, it's like she encourages play. As an adult, you're kind of quite serious, but then with an 8-year-old, it's like, no, I don't want anything to do with that. I want to run around the garden with my Nerf gun, and you're going to shoot me. I'm going to shoot you, more like, which is great. But also times in the day where you can fully surrender. And this is kind of the foundation of my work, which is, okay, full rest, and for emotional processing to take place, it requires mind and body to come to rest. So I'm not just lying on the sofa watching Netflix or going for a walk. It's like, okay, bring your body to rest, and get support so that your mind starts to unwind as well. And when that happens, you're fully present, and then it's like the body starts taking over and processing all these difficult emotions that you've been repressing during the day. And so I think that's really important, not just to have a couple of weeks a year where you fully rest. It's like ongoing practice, a way to process emotions daily, because they're always going to build up. And if you come back from a holiday, it might be even more stressed when you return. So that's something I found really important in my own life, is to have those resets in there daily to punctuate the routine. But in terms of your own working routine, this is what I'm interested in, is what does the structure look like? You talk about scheduling in play, for example. Do you have certain blocks, focus time that you particularly stick to, or in terms of turning off distractions in the day, anything like that? Boundaries?
Yeah, that's a good question. I like to have structure, and for me, actually, it fluctuates with different seasons. So as a working parent, right? Like, I have times that kids are on break, and I have times that there's more work to do. So I try to be more flexible with myself, because I tried rigid structures and routines and rituals and schedules, and it didn't quite work. There are some things that are like constant. Like, for example, in the morning when I wake up, I just do a quick walk, like a 10-minute walk, just to wake me up fully, because I'm not a morning person. But I know that my responsibility as a mother, worker, and even for myself, like require me to put in this much work, right? So I do that like a 10 minute walk. Before, I had more time and I could do a full hour in the morning when I wake up. So but this is not possible right now. So I have tried to break it down with my different seasons and then see where I can sprinkle these different habits that are healthy for me. And I have different structures, as I said, like, that are incrementally driven and also kind of placed in different parts of my day. And one thing I can refer to is when I read The Atomic Habits, I
Mm.
pick up this idea of, stacking different good habits in different spaces within the day, and also replacing habits that are not helpful. For example, the phone habit.
Yeah.
We tend to use our phone quite extensively sometimes. So I have had some uh, very kind of hardcore, like, okay, no phone at the table, a charging station where I would charge my phone outside of my bedroom, and like finding ways to build better digital relationships. I know that I told you when we met before, I even did a 5 year social media sabbatical where I spent 5 years away
Mm.
from technology. So I think there's something to be said in our modern day of building success about creating those structures and schedules, being fluid, but also having the non-negotiables around, for example, the use of technology, and making sure also we are finding time. I like what you said about having the time to fully rest, but also having the time to do the things that make us joyful. And I'll give a quick example. So there's a lady I helped recently. She was trying to set up a new business and she had so many things. She's a mother, she's trying to do all these things. And I asked her, how are you doing? She said, I'm overwhelmed. And I said to
Mm.
her, where are you going right now? She said, oh, but I'm going to work. So she feels like she needs permission to
Mm.
rest, even though like if she had a different way of thinking, like a mindset, she could still rest without having to always do these things in a certain way that is going to be rewarded. So I helped her over a few sessions, and we talked about life work alignment. And for, I don't know how to say it without showing you, that she sent me these flowers. Do you see that?
Mm. Beautiful. Look at those. Yeah.
Like,
Lovely.
she was like saying something around the lines of, like, she felt like she had permission to be
Mm.
herself for the first time. Like, she
Wow.
felt like she like I gave her permission to do something joyful for her. In that first
Mm.
session, when she left the appointment with me, instead of driving to work, she drove to Indigo to buy a notebook and write down what she wants. And
Nice.
this is the difference between the borrowed definition of success and the success that is yours. And if
Yeah.
there's anything you can retain from this conversation, is that try to take at least maybe 30 minutes and think about the success you're building. Is it yours or is it
Yeah.
inherited? And give yourself permission to be joyful as you build success. I mean, joy is my word for this year. And
Mhm.
I create joy, I cultivate joy, I tell people to be joyful. And in fact, I sign off nowadays with be joyful or stay joyful. That's my sign off for all my emails and
Mm.
different communications.
Wow. That's beautiful. Love it. I had a conversation with someone about this yesterday. The number one regret people have at the end of their lives is a book written by Bronnie Ware, who's a palliative health nurse, Five Biggest Regrets of the Dying. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. And it just reminded me of that, because it is like a lot of us are chasing success, but it's kind of an imprinted societal or someone else's version of success that we're chasing. I should have the six-figure business by now. I should be in this role by now. I should be living in this place by now. A lot of shoulds in there. But it's really a journey of coming back to yourself. How do you do that? Well, you have to pause and, like you said, reflect on and again, it's coming back to what actually feels good to you. Like I said, a lot of people have overridden that over the years because, especially in that pattern you're talking about there, which I meet a lot of people in this pattern, which is, I call it the pleaser pattern, which is putting other people's needs above your own constantly. Like a lot of mothers, that's kind of what a lot of mothers I meet do the same thing. It's like everybody else is more important than I am. So yes, how do you create a life that is aligned with yourself? Well, like we said, we start following what feels good to you instead of what you feel like you should do or you have to do. It's like, okay, what feels right to me in this place? Doing this, how does that feel? Doing this, how does that feel? And following, what lights you up, as I always say, or it feels expansive or exciting or passionate for you. And also reconnecting with yourself on a deeper level. Again, it's at the core of my work, which is, okay, there's this conditioned version of ourselves, which is when we live in our heads, which kind of these thoughts that go round and round and round and round and round, but there's actually a deeper version of ourselves that we can connect with through the body in the present moment. And the more we do this work, like meditation, for example, reconnecting with the present moment, the more we can reconnect with our true self and disconnect from this conditioned mind that we've inherited from society or all kinds of other influences. So that's what that was going to be my last question. How would you define success now? But I think you did that really well at the end of that. But if you had to sum it up in a sentence, what would it be? Your definition of success that you would say to people now? Could you define it into one sentence?
Yes, I would say that success for me has to be joy filled. So it has to integrate joy. So it's really living a life where I am still joyful as I build, because I believe that success, as I said before, is not a destination, is not a milestone. It is something that we have to embrace, and we have to make sure success is joy filled, because other than that, success can just become stress in disguise. So I encourage people to explore what joy driven success looks like for them in this current season, because it's not one size fits all. And so success is by design, it's not by default, because if you leave it up for other people to define it for you, yes, they will do it, and they'll do a really good job of erasing who you are. So I strongly believe in success as a sense of self-leadership, where you lead yourself. I like what you said about going within. You lead yourself first. You are full and you're fulfilled. And then you can be able to lead others, and you can be able to show up fully at home, at work, and as yourself. And that is how you thrive.
I love that. Exactly what I teach. Leadership comes down to self-leadership first. And exactly, it's a nice circle here, because we come back to where we started, which is, instead of seeking the fulfillment and the recognition and the wholeness in external, can you find that fulfillment inside first, that ground, that stability, that joy inside in a connection to yourself, and then build on that. So you're not trying to find fulfillment and enoughness in the external world. You've already got that by your connection to yourself, and then build the career, the business, or whatever it is on top of that. So it's coming from true alignment, which is what we're always talking about in our work. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Petra. Where would you like to guide people to if they'd like to learn more about you and the work that you do?
I would say check out Petra Michael on LinkedIn. I am an open book over there. I talk about these things all the time. I talk about leadership. I talk about life work alignment. I talk about how to integrate as a high achieving working parent, and all these important topics. But the final word for you is that if you're in that place of feeling unfulfilled, even though you've built impressive success, give yourself grace. Don't go in with guilt, because then you're going to feel like a failure. Give yourself grace. Take the time to pause, go within, and take it from there. You're more capable than you think, and you deserve joy-driven success.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and actually, there's great worth in a lot of people. You know have they get to the point where they reach the top of the mountain, they've achieved all their success, and then they realize, actually, it's not found here. There's actually a great deal of worth in getting to that point, because then you know for sure, okay, fulfillment, joy, happiness is found in something else apart from just external achievement. A lot of people will just chase that their whole lives without actually getting there, and then only at the end of life realize, I was on the wrong mountain, if you want. So I love that. Beautiful. Thank you, Petra. Yes, as I said, she's very active on LinkedIn. Check her out on there, and great content on there. But we'll leave it there today. Such a pleasure talking to you today, Petra, and love talking about this subject. We could talk much longer about it, but let's leave it there for today.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining.
Have a joyful day.
That's the word of the day, joyful.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Thanks all for joining.
All right.
And I'll
Thank
be back
you.
soon.
Bye. Okay, bye.
Bye for now.